So what's really going on in the DC real estate market? Are homes still selling for 30, 50, 100, 200,000 over asking price in some cases? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Is it somewhere in the middle? Now, I don't have a crystal ball, can't predict the future, but I think I have somewhat of an idea of what's going on in the marketplace because I'm in the trenches every day with clients. We're looking at homes, we're making offers, we're negotiating, we're trying to make deals happen. So a few days ago, I put up a poll on the channel asking your thoughts on which one of the metro markets in DC you think is the most competitive between DC proper, Maryland, and Virginia. And the results of that poll were as follows. So 8% of you thought Maryland counties, so Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Howard County, was the least competitive market. 44% of you thought DC was the second least competitive market, and 48% of you thought Northern Virginia, so Fairfax County, Fairfax City, Alexandria, Arlington. 48% of you thought Northern Virginia was the most competitive market. Now, is this really the case? So we have Northern Virginia in first place for most competitive, DC in second place for second most competitive, and Maryland way down below as the least competitive market. But is this really the case though? Let's take a look at some data because listen, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter, what my mama thinks. It doesn't matter what the president thinks. The data says it all. So let's look at some actual data to see which one of these markets are actually the most competitive in 2024. So I'm going to put up this chart on the screen, and all this chart is the monthly market report for the DC metro region. So these reports come out on a monthly basis, and I am obsessed with analyzing the data just so I can stay ahead of the game when it comes to advising clients on advising clients on market conditions, just so we make the right moves and implement the right strategies in the marketplace, right? We're not trying to get left behind here by implementing strategies that were working 3 or 6 months ago and they no longer work today. It just becomes harder to get buyers' offers accepted and it gets harder to get clients' homes sold. That's just unacceptable. So we study these reports so we know exactly what's going on in the marketplace. So let's look at the report. And I know this is a lot of numbers and figures and percentages, but I'm going to try to break this down in a very simplistic manner. So if you look at the right column, it has months of supply. And I'm going to explain what that means. We can see the local markets. So DC, Alexandria, Arlington, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and so on and so forth. Now, let's go all the way down to the bottom and let's look at Washington, DC, and let's move all the way to the right and let's look at the months of supply. So we can see that DC has a 4.41 months of supply compared to the other counties in Maryland and Virginia, which seem to have roughly around a 1 to 1.5 months of supply. Now, what does months of supply mean? All this means is if everyone stopped listing their home, let's take DC, for example, it's going to take roughly around 4.5 months for all the current homes that are already on the market to get sold, right? Now, we know people sell homes every day, but hypothetically speaking, if everyone just stopped, homeowners went on strike, we're not selling, it's going to take 4.5 months in DC for all the homes to get sold. Now, we compare that to every other market in Maryland and Northern Virginia. Let's look at Arlington, for example. They're at like 1.61 months of supply. And Falls Church City in Virginia, they are at 1.09 months of supply. Montgomery County is at 1.47 and Prince George's County is at 1.67. Now, as we can see here, DC is the only outlier. And why is that the case? So all this means is in all these other markets in Virginia and Maryland, if those sellers stop listing their homes on the market, the current inventory is going to take around a month to a month and a half to get sold. So they're selling at a faster pace than they are in DC, right? So the homes in DC aren't selling as fast compared to these other markets. Why is this the case? Why does DC have so many months of supply, right? They're just properties accumulating and accumulating and they're not moving as fast. Why is this the case? Well, that's because demand in the city is actually down. And why is demand in DC down? I know a lot of people have this impression that the DC market is like super competitive. It's cutthroat. Everything sells for 100,000 over asking price. Well, I mean, at one point that used to happen. You got to remember the draw for a lot of people to live in DC used to be, and still is to a certain extent, was being close to everything, being close to work, being close to, different amenities, being close to metros. And that just prevents you from doing a lot of commuting to and from work, and you don't have to drive everywhere. Like, that was the main draw for living in the city. But when the pandemic happened in 2020, a lot of people started getting the privilege of working from home. So what we started seeing was a lot of people who were living in, these 1 and 2 bedroom condos, they started moving out to the suburbs of Maryland, suburbs of Virginia. So the demand for condos, especially condos in DC, it went down. And the demand for homes with more space in the suburbs of DC, so Virginia and Maryland, all those counties, they started going up. Now, I don't want to make a blanket statement and say this is happening in all of DC, because this is definitely neighborhood by neighborhood. And the demand also varies by what type of asset you're buying. DC market is broken up into condo market and the single family house market. So there's still certain subsections of DC, certain neighborhoods that are still very competitive, like a lot of neighborhoods in Upper Northwest, and certain price points still remain to be very competitive. But as far as condos go in DC, they're just not moving as fast as they used to, because a lot of people can work from home now. So, they'll take that 7, 8, 900,000 and they'll go out to the suburbs and get a bigger home, because they don't have to worry about that pain of commuting an hour and a half to and from work every single day. And I don't want to make it seem like the DC real estate market is crashing. Now, demand is down, but it's not crashing by any means. Homes aren't selling for 50% off. Now, there are deals out there to be made, but homes aren't, selling for 50% off. It's not the Walmart, Target clearance section by any means. It's just no longer an extreme seller's market. Now, what does this mean for you as a buyer if you were interested in buying a home, buying a condo in DC? Well, this means there's room to negotiate on price and terms, and you're most likely not going to have to put in these extreme offers way over asking price, because that was really what was going on during the pandemic, right up until like mid 2022 when the interest rates started going up. But before then, it was just a crazy market. So let me show you a few examples of these situations. So if we look at this home, this is a small, cute row home in DC near Capitol Hill that I helped a client purchase about a month ago. And as we can see here, the listing price for this home started off at $500,000, and we were able to secure this home at $415,000. And here's another example of another home, a condo that I helped a client buy in DC, not too far from this neighborhood, right off the 8th Street corridor in Noma. The price started off at $850,000, and as we can see, it sat on the market for 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 months. We were able to get this property for $685,000. And as we can see here, I mean, this is a beautiful property. Like, nothing is wrong with this home. It's brand new construction. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo in a great location, close to amenities, close to metros. And it just sat on the market, because the demand for this kind of asset class in DC is way down. Now, if we put this property in a time machine and she was buying this property back in like 2017, 18, 19, we probably wouldn't have been able to get this much off the asking price, because it was just a different time at that point. Now, as a seller, if you're selling a property in DC, what does this mean for you? It's a lot tougher than it used to be, especially for condos, because that's the section of the DC market where a lot of the demand is down. However, I don't want to scare you, don't want to make it seem like it's impossible to, get your home sold. That's not the case by any means. DC still remains a somewhat competitive market. It still remains in demand. And you got to remember, DC is like an international city. So people are always coming and leaving, and it's still a desirable place to be, right? But the market has shifted a little bit. We're in a more balanced market now. So sellers don't hold all the leverage, which I think is a nice, healthy market to be in, because prices aren't just going through the roof so quickly. So if you're a seller, it's not the end of the world. Just keep this in mind. Homes aren't selling in lightning speed. So based on this data that we just looked at, the actual ranking seems to be, I would say Northern Virginia and Maryland are like kind of neck and neck, because they both have around a month to a month and a half months of supply. And then DC is definitely in third place as the least competitive market in the DMV region in 2024, with a whopping 4.5 months of supply. So with that being said, if you're looking to purchase or sell a home in any one of these 3 markets, especially in DC, if you're looking to get a great deal in DC, feel free to reach out to me, call, text, email, All my contact details are in the description below. Look forward to assisting you with any real estate plans you might have, whether that's now or in the future, 2025, 2026. Feel free to reach out and let's talk about it. I'll see you in the next video.